Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be my review for Crossbones Season 1, Episode 2, The Covenant. And I thought this was another really great episode, just as strong as the first one, and I still really enjoyed it. I like especially that we got a lot more Blackbeard in this episode. That's something that I definitely really enjoyed a lot in this episode, is that we got a lot more of Blackbeard, which I like when we get a lot of Blackbeard. So, let's just get to this episode, because as I said, I really did enjoy this one, so yeah. So we see Blackbeard. He's watching his collection of clocks and the chronometer that James managed to reconstruct. And he tells him that's outstanding, and a pirate ship rides the seas with blindfolded men on board, but all but Blackbeard's men. So Selmia tells Blackbeard that he can't trust Valentine, and he should think again. He asks her who he can trust if not Valentine, and who he can trust is Tom. And Tom sits scribbling, and Fletch asks if he's doing it for memory, and he asks what that one is, and he says it's an underwater ship, and Fletch asks if it's on purpose, and asks what's the point, and he says secrecy. He's also sketched out the Spanish guy that was meeting with the pirates. He tells Fletch to go and be useful, and Kate asks if he's found suitable accommodations, and Tom says he has agreed to serve as the island's surgeon. Even though, he's not a doctor, and he's there to kill Blackbeard, that's why he's there. I think the thing is, though, now he still has to pretend to actually be a doctor. So, she says he needs a roof and tools, and he says he has no money, but she offers to swamp him goods. So, if it will help her husband, she says he's in pain, and Lowe says he can't make any guarantees. They then look at Valentine's ship coming in, and he says that he thought the island was a secret, and Kate says it is, and that she has to go. She extracts a promise for him to see James today. He calls for a spyglass from Fletch and looks out on the board. And on board, Nena tells the men that they can take off their hoods and welcomes them to Santa Campana with the Commodore's compliments. Which that's what they call Blackbeard. They can't call Blackbeard Blackbeard because he doesn't want them to call him Blackbeard, so they call him the Commodore. So the ship pulls into harbor, and the head troll-up wakes up the prostitutes and tells them to limber up. She asks where Maggie is. Fletch is approached by one of the pros, who shows him a sponge and tells him that the girls have urgent need of them. She gives him one and tells him good boy and walks away. So then we meet Sam Valentine, who is basically the big villain in this episode. He greets the Commodore, and he says it's a pleasure to finally be there to see the Flowered Kingdom, and he calls him Ed, and he asks why he's there. And since he's so despised and mistrusted, Tom sneaks along the rooftop and crouches down to eavesdrop, and Ed tells him that he can't trust anyone with this location. Sam says he will find him eventually. He tells Sam that an item of value has come into his possession. He says it's a chronometer, and Sam says he's heard those are impossible, but Ed says he murdered and killed to get it, and says it's worth a king's ransom. He says owning it leaves him disadvantaged since it means Jagger will come looking for him to recover it. He tells Sam that it's his and Jagger will pay a fortune to recover it. Sam asks how that benefits him, and he says Jagger will be recalled to England and be out of his hair. Now Sam asks if he stole it, to return it to prove he doesn't exist, and Ed says he can't have stolen it if he doesn't exist. And he asks for a hellburner or two, and Sam says that in the hands of the English, it means the end of the shipping lanes and the end of piracy. He tells Ed no and says to destroy it, and they will go on as they were. And he asks Sam if he's sure, and he says he is, and he walks out. Charlie hears the sealing creak and looks up, but then lets it go. Fletch is then driving for sponges for the girls when a dead body bops up into the water, and he screams in terror. So Commodore tells Selmia that he can't kill Sam or it will make him an enemy of his own kind, and if he lets him go, he will betray him. Selmia tells him to rise by first descending, and she tells him to build a foundation of humility. He asks her to lay down with him, and she says that would make her only human. So, Lowe then runs into Isengram, who says homicide, and says he knows he took Elaine from him, and Tom says he's sorry for his misfortune, but he's been locked up, so it wasn't him that took it from him. And Fletch sits on the beach talking to a crab and says they'll hang Tom for it. He goes back into the water, and he weighs the body down with rocks, pushes him back under the sea. He turns up the brothel and is greeted warmly. He asks what they're there for, and she says bastard thwarting. She demonstrates with her hand, and he's shocked. So Isengram sings while Sam and the others drink and listen, And Nana asks how long he's known Blackbeard, and he says, back from when he was a skinny lad named Eddie. And then we see Tom comes in to see James as he promised, because, you know, he made that promise to Kate that he will help James. And he tells Tom the loss of Nightingale is a loss of great mind. He asks what James does for the Commodore, and he says he keeps up his timepieces, and he says Kate asked him to come see him to ease his suffering. And James says he's lost a lost cause, and Tom says he knows who he is, James Belfour, who's backed the wrong king. And Tom says he knows he was betrayed and tortured, but wouldn't yield, and says he's a hero about among Jacobites. And Tom says he's not a Jacobite, and James says that makes them enemies. And he says, in another world far from here, maybe. So Tom checks his legs and asks about his pain. He asks if he can stand. He says only with support and only sometimes. I like this scene because you can see the bonding between them. And Tom says there may be ways to alleviate the distress. James says he uses rum and opium, and Tom says that opium can rob him of vigor, and says he knows. I'm wondering if possibly Tom might be able to cure him. I mean, there's no cure for getting someone out of a wheelchair, but is there a way he can make him, you know, not, because, you know, he's kind of sick and everything, so is a way he can cure him. Tom goes to see Kate and says it's not in his power to help him, but it's in hers. You know, he can't help him. He knows that he can't help him. And he says that her husband does not need compassion or pity, only love. She tells him James was in Newgate prison and that she bribed and conspired, lied, and stole him to get him out and away. And she says she gave away her entire life for James. He says she asked what would relieve his suffering, and he has told her so his death of her to her is repaid in full, and he walks away. So then we get a very big scene. Sam is now drunk, and Charlie tells him to stop. Nana says to ignore Charlie and tell the story. He says Ed was about to shoot the helmsman, and then the ship moves. And he shot the first mate through the knee instead. And Izzy Hands, who had the nerve to complain, he says Ed got angry and shot him through the brain. Then someone speaks up, and it was Charlie. He asks what he said. Charlie says, doesn't matter. Sam gets on and says, Ed spit on the deck, and says if he hadn't shot him dead, that they would have forgotten under whom they were serving. And he asks if Charlie has another tale, and says that Ed told tales of himself until others starting telling the tales. And he starts, like, very ferociously calling out Blackbeard. He rambles drunkly until the Commodore comes in, and he asks Sam if he would insult him in his home in front of his crew, and he's mocking all his crew. So Sam mocks him, says, who needs a king when you have Blackbeard? And Ed says, we do not use that name here, because, you know, the thing is, using the name Blackbeard is basically illegal in their town. So Sam asks who elected him, Commodore, and Sam swaggers up closer and says it was you. He asks what's to stop him from deciding in his new republic that king or emperor has a merry ring to it, and Sam says his ambition will kill them all. That's a really big thing there. I think it's a really big thing, and from here, the episode gets really intense, because the brothel's busy, and it's busy when a woman comes in and asks to speak to Valentine's men alone. We don't see who it is. It might be Selmia. And Blackbeard walks the beach and hears whispers. He looks back and sees his angel hallucination. He turns and runs from it. And he says, I won't see you, I won't see you. He goes to a candlelight shrine, and then hears a noise off in the jungle. So James tries to move his legs, stands up to get in the bed, and Kate comes to help him, and she takes his hand and tells him to never doubt her ever, and she kisses him passionately, which is really sweet. So he hears the sword being drawn and turns. He tells the men he's unmarried and asks if Sam sent him. They circle in town. Tom creeps around peeking at people. Blackbeard grabs a skill from the shrine, throws it, engages the man in fistcuffs. It's really intense here. He grabs one of the bells done to defend himself. Charlie hears it, then tells everyone to shut it, then goes running to see what it is. Blackbeard is beating one of the killers with the bell, and another gets up and he demands to know who sent him. Slashes the man with a sword he now has. He asks again, the man doesn't answer, knocks him down, puts the blade to him, tells him to say the name, stabs him, demands the name, calls for Tom to save him, and Tom says it can't be done, and Blackbeard says to buy him 1 more minute. He tells the man to confess before he dies and says the name, and he dies. And Blackbeard is furious, and he asks Charlie where he was. He calls him as slow as a two-bale bitch, and demands that he find out who sent these men. His crew goes off to find out, and Lena confronts Sam with a sword. So we're trying to figure out who did it. And then Selmia tells Blackbeard that he pushed Sam to this, and he says he thinks it was Finnegan, the first mate, plotting against Sam so he can take over the ship. Which this is very interesting, because now we kind of have this big conflict of who sent these men on the ship, who sent them here. And she says she thinks it was Tom and says he tried to kill him before. The Commodore reminds him that he saved him and asks what her obsession is with the doc's depravity. And Selmia asks what reasons Tom had to save him or murder him. And she says his Englishness is enough. He tells Ned and Charlie they can lock up Lochu, but says to keep Sam away from Finnegan because Sam has seen his last sunrise. I don't think Sam's gone though for good. Tom comes in and says he isn't responsible for the Commodore's attack, but says he knows they won't believe him, so he surrenders himself to them. That's a pretty big thing there. So then Tom now sits in jail to the same post as Sam, who asked Tom if he bribed his men to attack the Commodore. And Tom says he has no money and asks him the same. Sam says he didn't, but now wishes he has. Sam says he once loved the Commodore, but he's also the most evil man he's known. And he says he's seen him burn boats full of men and laugh for the fun of it. What's really interesting is I think what Sam is now is what Tom is going to become. He's going to become this very hateful man against Blackbeard, and he's going to become basically just as bad as Blackbeard. And Tom says he can help him and says slow hanging is a cruel death that can take days. He says he can make it easier. He asks what he wants in return, and he says information. He asks what a hellburner is. Sam thinks he's an agent of the Crown and says they seem to have a mutual enemy. And he says whatever Tom's motives is, he asks that he kill him quick and clean. He tells him that a hellburner is an empty ship packed with rocks, iron shads, and gunpowder set with a timing mechanism. He says a weapon of indiscriminate destruction, and he asks why the Commodore want one. He says it could be a bridge, town, or port, but he can rest assured that the innocents will die by the score. So Kate goes to the Commodore and says Tom is innocent in this. He asks what made her elect herself his defender. She says he spent most of his day in his bed, and she says if you hang the wrong man, then the guilty man goes free. And she knows he loves justice too much for that. At the hastily built gallows, Sam and Tom are dragged out and pulled to the noose while the crowd screams traitor, and they are set up on stools. Very, very intense here. So Kate watches from the crowd when the Commodore comes up. He tells Charlie that this is Sam Valentine, and Charlie says he tried to have killed him. And the Commodore says if Sam wanted him dead, he would have drawn a sword and put it to him directly. He tells Charlie to come down. Netta says a jury has found him guilty, and that it's the law. Commodore yells at him and asks them who he is. He calls them dogs and bitches. He asks who can tell him who he is. They all stand in silence. He turns to Sam, tells him that he can't stop them because he's not their king. Nana walks forward and the Commodore winks at him. Nana kicks the stool away, goes to do the same to Lo, but Kate rushes forward and whispers to her that Tom was with her. And Nana tells him he's lucky and innocent and cuts his bond and lets him go. Sam, in the meantime, though, chokes slowly on the noose and he dies, so then the next morning, Tom loads a gun, sneaks about, loads the gun, takes careful aim, and shoots him through the heart, runs off. Commodore tells Charlie that it was a good lad that put the bullets in and spared the agony. He asks Finnegan if he will do what he asked Sam to do and sell the chronometer to Jagger. And he says he will if it will make amends. He takes the chronometer and goes. And Selmia says this was a lot to go through to get what he wanted. She says those men could have really killed him, and he asks if she truly believes that. She tells him not to get himself in harm's way again, and he says he never did it once. He tosses a giant ruby to Rose and the brothel owner and asks how it went. She says she told them that she and the girls were held prisoner there, and he asks if she knows the difference between the legend and the secret, and then tells her that if she can't keep one, she'll become part of the other. Essentially, he told her if she ever tells anyone what went down, she's dead, and she nods in understanding. So I'm wondering if she will tell someone. I'm thinking she will. We'll have to see what happens there, though. So Tom comes home and finds Kate waiting for him. She thanks him for talking to James and says that it can be exhausting and says he knows. She's all teary and tells him that she's glad he didn't get hanged. And he says she's not half as glad as he is. She touches his face, then kisses him, and he kisses her back. So that's a pretty big thing. So yeah, Lo and Kate just kissed, and that's really big because I'm thinking there's going to be some sort of relationship here, even though Kate loves James. You know, she has feelings for Tom, clearly, so we'll have to see what happens there. But I have a lot of questions now. Besides that, is Tom going to become what Sam was? I'm thinking that's what Tom is probably going to become, is what Sam is now. I'm thinking that's what's going to happen to him. Will Selmia tell somebody of what happened? Will Selmia go against Blackbeard? We'll have to see what happens there. As far as, do you think that Blackbeard actually trusts Tom? I don't know if he trusts him. We'll have to see. I think at this point he does, but I'm thinking that the season, as I said, is going to end with the two of them, like, at war with each other. We'll have to see what happens there. And also, is there a way for James, what's going to happen with James? You know, James and Tom are very good friends, so do you think that we're going to start having some sort of a love triangle between James, Tom, and Kate? We'll have to see. But overall, I really did enjoy this episode. I thought it was a very strong episode. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. That's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed it. My next review will be for The movie's coming out in June, so I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.